everybody. We'll just wait another minute or two for everyone to join. Well, thank you for dropping your location in the chat. I'd love to see where everybody's from. Yeah, good afternoon. Lots of folks from all over. Welcome. Very good, very good. Well, hi everyone, and thank you for joining me today for this breakout session where we will talk about how to set organization-wide goals and align your team around them. So first, let's go ahead and walk through the agenda together to give you an idea of what we'll be talking about. I know that you've already had a lot of different breakout sessions, keynote speaker, and what a wonderful morning it has been already. And now as we get more into the afternoon sessions, I look forward to sharing a little bit about my story and Badger CPA story. So first I'll give a little quick introduction of who I am and who Badger CPA is. I'll include an overview of how we got started on this workflow management journey, how we set our organization-wide goals, and how Financial Sense has helped us align our team around those goals. So as you know, this WorkflowCon conference is organized into 3 tracks: the start track, the grow track, and the scale track. And while this breakout session is under the track start, I will touch a little bit on the growth and scaling steps that we have accomplished thanks to Financial Sense. And at the end of the presentation, we'll open it up to questions. And I know that you're able to post your questions, so definitely do that throughout the presentation. So let's go ahead and get started. So thank you again for joining us. A little introduction here. So my name is Amanda Owens, and I am the firm administrator at Badger CPA. I am on the leadership team, and I oversee the firm's ministry, HR, IT, and culture. So those are my responsibilities, and I have been with Badger CPA for almost 4 years, and it has been a wonderful experience. So Badger CPA is based out of San Antonio, Texas. So that's where I'm calling in from today. And we have 48 employees, and we all work remotely. We do have an office in San Antonio and in Austin for those that want to be in the office, but primarily we all work remotely. We provide outsourced accounting services, tax compliance and planning, payroll services, software implementations, and we provide F&A recruitment services to our clients. And so our clients are typically in the 1 to 25 million annual revenue range, so kind of that mid-size range. Our clients are mainly in the construction or nonprofit space, but we also have clients who do government contracting, along with a few other industries. So Badger CPA will actually celebrate its 10-year anniversary next year, and we are really looking forward to what's ahead. So that's a little bit about Badger CPA, and now I'd like to move on to our workflow management journey. To be honest, the journey started long before I arrived at Badger CPA, and we finally found our workflow management solution in the spring of 2021, and that's when we implemented Financial Sense. So we'll get into that journey a little bit more on the next slide, but before we move on, I'd like to ask you all a quick question. So if you could just drop it in the chat, your answer. So the first question, I'd like to see who all is already using Financial Sense as your workflow management software. So just there we go. So a lot of people already are using Financial Sense. That's wonderful. All right. So yeah, not yet. Some already. Awesome. Now, if you would, let me know if you are using another workflow software. You don't have to say which one, but just if you already have a workflow management software. All right. All right, so some answers there. And then lastly, how many of you still need a workflow software? All right. Very good, very good. Thank you. That gives us an idea of who our audience is today. All right, very good. Well, now let's move to how it all started for Badger CPA, how we got started on this journey. So when I started at Badger CPA, they had already tried a few various software apps that could handle workflow management. And I'm not going to list out the software that we tried, but there were over 5 different software apps that we tried for workflow management. And while each of those software apps helped with some of our needs, there just wasn't a tool that gave us the insights and measurables that we needed. So a little bit more background about Badger CPA that is relevant to today's discussion. So over the last almost 10 years, we've grown from 2 people to 48 people. And with that growth, our needs have obviously changed greatly. So that's a lot of growth, and maybe your firm has grown even faster, but I think the topic today will be relevant to small, mid-sized, and large companies. So I want to challenge you to think about your firm while we continue this discussion. So over the next few slides, I want you to think about what this could look like for your firm. Try to jot down some goals for yourself. For example, how are you going to get started? How are you going to set organization-wide goals? How are you going to align your team around them? So moving on to the next slide, I want to share more about how we got started on this journey. So I think it all starts with the leadership team. Your leadership team may look different than ours, but to give you a visual, our leadership team is made up of 6 people. We have 3 partners in our firm, and they are all on the leadership team. And also on the leadership team is our CFO, so our internal accountant, CFO, our accounting director, and myself as the firm administrator. And just to remind you, firm administrator, I'm in charge of the ministry, HR, IT, and culture. So basically the HR person in IT. So the 6 of us on the leadership team, we meet quarterly to set goals for the firm and to keep up with to keep us on track with our vision. So first, in that leadership team quarterly meeting, we first set our 10-year goal. Then based on that, we narrow it down and we set our 3-year goal. Then we set our 1-year goal, and lastly, we set our goal for the upcoming quarter. And we do that every quarter as a leadership team. And keeping this rhythm really allows us to stay on track and hold ourselves accountable. Revisiting our vision and goals each quarter helps us to stay on track, but it also helps us to be flexible to the changing times. Obviously, setting 3-year goals, 10-year goals, you have to be flexible, and there will likely be adjustments needed over time. But having an idea of what the firm will look like in 3 years and in 10 years keeps us focused, keeps us motivated, keeps us aligned. So next I want to just focus on that flexibility for a moment. We are all more flexible more now than ever we have been in the past. And I think that's because of the pandemic. The pandemic forced us all to be flexible. For example, a 10-year goal that was set prior to the pandemic had to change. Even our 1-year goals had to change. Our quarterly goals had to change. the world is a totally different place now. Every industry has been affected. Every industry has had to adjust to the new normal. And honestly, I think flexibility is the new normal. We have to be. So that means everyone on the leadership team has to be flexible. Everyone on the leadership team has to have open communication about the changing world and be able to adapt quickly. Like I mentioned, our leadership team meets quarterly to set goals, but those goals are going to fail unless you can share the vision and align the vision with the team around those organizational goals and make sure it's followed by all. So this slide, like I said, it starts with the leadership team. And then you have to share that vision with everyone else. And then you have to make sure it's followed by all. Of course, that's easier said than done. I think we can all agree that, yeah, that sounds like it should be easy, but it's not. And so on the next few slides, we're going to break all of this down even more. And just to remind you, the topic of this session is how to set organization-wide goals and align your team around them. And it starts with the leadership team. So it is so critical to have a leadership team that is on the same page, that meets regularly, and that holds each other accountable for the goals that are set. So to dig in deeper on that leadership team part of this, what has helped us at Badger CPA is that we have a third-party consultant that joins our quarterly leadership team meetings to help guide our conversation and holds us accountable to the goal and the vision. The next one there is we have to have 100% alignment, 100% buy-in by all of the leaders, 100% commitment from everyone on the team. If your leadership team is not on the same page, then none of this will be possible. So 100% alignment. It might take a lot of work and a lot of compromise, a lot of communication, but it's worth the effort. And it will take continued, what we call same page meetings, to make sure everyone is aligned. And remember that if your leadership team is not aligned, then the whole firm will feel that. So that truly is the most critical task at hand, in my opinion. I would also recommend doing everything possible to make that happen, whether it's like what we do, we have a third-party consultant, maybe hiring a mediator or a counselor, etc. It's that important to have that alignment. So the leadership team also has to make sure that the vision and the goals are clearly defined. If there's confusion at the leadership level, then the whole firm will be confused. So the vision really has to be clearly defined and the goals need to be clearly defined too. So lastly, on this slide, it should also be clear as to who is responsible for each goal and when that goal is due. So don't just communicate a list of goals without assigning it to a specific person. Okay, you're in charge of this goal, you're in charge of that goal. And when is it going to be due? Is this a goal that needs to be completed at the end of the year, or at the end of the quarter, or the end of 3 years? That needs to be communicated as well. So what's the next step? So after the leadership team is 100% aligned with clearly defined vision and goals, with who's assigned to what and the due date for each goal, what's next? So the next step is to share the vision. Like I mentioned earlier, the vision needs to be clear, and it's the leadership team's responsibility to set that clear vision. For example, where is the firm going in 10 years? Where is the firm going in 3 years, 1 year? Where are we going this quarter? It needs to be clear. The vision also needs to be concise. And honestly, honestly, the vision also needs to be memorable. I think it's important to have something memorable. And you could have either a third-party consultant or maybe a marketing team help you to wordsmith that vision to meet these requirements. Also, every employee will want to know their purpose within that vision. For example, at Badger CPA, we're more than an accounting firm. So what is our vision? What is each employee's purpose within that firm vision? So the next one there is, how do you communicate the vision? We do this on a quarterly basis, but it might need to happen more often. And it might seem repetitive to communicate it every week or every month or every quarter, but it's necessary. People need to hear things multiple times before they really catch the vision or remember the vision. So the vision needs to be repeated often to remind the current employees and the new employees, to remind them of their purpose and where the firm is going. So we at Badger CPA have a quarterly team touch point where all 48 employees hear from the leadership team. We share our vision in that meeting for the next 3 years and for the next year and for the next quarter. And we also review what we accomplished the previous quarter. For your firm, it might be communicated more often, but you should talk about it as a leadership team to make sure the whole team knows what the vision is. How are you going to get that message across? Maybe take a poll periodically, or send an employee survey to make sure everyone understands what the vision is, like to make sure that you're being transparent as a leadership team. Make sure they feel like they're hearing from the leadership team often, and get that feedback and listen. If they don't feel like they understand what the vision is, or if they don't feel like you're communicating clearly, then adjust based on that feedback. Listen to them. I've actually heard some firms that host a weekly town hall to go over all of this, and some firms might decide that a weekly video from the leadership team is a good method. There's a lot of ways to do this. A newsletter, just a Teams chat, a Slack chat, some sort of email communication, but I feel that over communication is necessary. Lastly, the vision needs to be trackable. What measurables can you put in place to hold your team accountable? Honestly, each employee should have KPI that they're being held accountable to. At Badger CPA, we have clear expectations for each employee. What is expected of our accountants? What is expected of our senior accountants, our assistant controllers, our directors, our leaders? And remember, no matter how small or how big your company is, you must align your team around those specific organizational goals. And I think it starts with a vision that is clear, that is concise, that you can communicate, and that you can track. So the next step is to make sure that the vision is followed by all. The goals are followed by all. Once the 100% aligned leadership team sets a clearly defined vision with clearly defined goals and communicates them to the team with trackable measurables to hold the team accountable, there's the last step really is to make sure that it's followed by all. I think this is one of the hardest steps because, especially for a mid-sized or a large company, because how do you make sure that everyone is following suit? Everyone's following the processes. Everyone understands the vision. I think that this is where training comes in. This is where process documentation comes in. And this is where accountability comes in. Training should be a constant discussion at the leadership level, because keeping the whole team on the same page is so important, and training is going to help with that. I actually recommend doing live training for your current employees, but definitely record that training so that new employees can watch it as well. At Badger CPA, we have a weekly internal training that we record, and each training session is on a different internal process. So you can decide what's best for your firm, but I definitely think that making sure that it's followed, that the vision and the goals are followed by all, starts with training. So process documentation is another way that you can make sure the vision and goals are followed by all. Process documentation needs to be created for all internal processes, like I mentioned. What is your internal process on client communication? What is your internal process on quality control, client deliverables? What are the internal expectations about apparel, like dress? What do you want your team to dress, your dress code? What are your standard operating procedures? What is the onboarding materials, company policies, training and development? And the list goes on and on. So these are all examples of what you should document. And remember that all process documentation are living documents. It's okay that they will change over time. So make it in a format that can be edited. Send updates to your team regularly. Like, here's some updates to this process. Lastly, accountability is very important in making sure the vision and the goals are followed by all. Don't just create the vision and the goals. You have to hold each person accountable. You have to hold them accountable to their measurables, to their KPIs, to their purpose. I actually recommend incorporating those measurables into the firm's performance review rhythm. That's how important all of this is. I think that your employees' bonuses, their raises, their promotions should all be based on their individual KPI. That's how you get buy-in. That's how you get alignment with the firm's vision, is having that accountability. So to recap, aligning your team around specific organizational goals, it starts with the leadership team. Then you have to share the vision and the goals with the team. Then you have to make sure it's followed by all. So is this realistic for your firm? I want you to ask yourself the following question. So first of all, do you have a leadership team in place? It should be more than just you. You should have other people on your leadership team that you can collaborate with. Is that leadership team unified? Do you have the alignment across the leadership team with the vision and the organizational goals? And if not, what steps are you going to take to create that alignment? Maybe you need to hire a coach or a mediator or a counselor to help get everyone on the same page. Have you shared your vision with your team? What format are you going to follow? Maybe a monthly team touch point, or weekly, or just quarterly? How can you make sure everyone is on the same page? How can you make sure everyone knows the firm's vision and that knows their role within that vision? How can you make sure that the vision and the goals are followed by all? Are you training your team? Do you have your processes documented? Are you keeping everyone accountable? How do you measure each person's KPI? How often do you give them an update? Are they meeting those KPI? Are they behind target, or are they just barely meeting the target? Maybe you should incorporate their KPI into your performance review rhythm so that it's more, you get more buy-in, so they understand that the bonus is tied to these KPI. So at the beginning of the presentation, I mentioned that I reminded you that the conference is organized by 3 tracks: start, grow, and scale. And so my breakout session, the topic is how to set organization-wide goals and align your team around them. So that's part of the start track. But now I'd like to briefly explain how Badger CPA has used financial sense to allow us to grow and scale. So, and I'm going to speed up I'm going to talk a little bit faster. I know we're getting close to the Q&A time. So back in 2021, we at Badger CPA acquired another accounting firm, and that doubled us in size. Our team size doubled, and our client base also almost doubled. So the acquisition and the resulting growth, it created an urgency for us to find a new workflow management software. And we ended up rolling out Financial Sense at the same time, and it has been instrumental in giving us visibility as we grow and scale. So due to that acquisition, like I mentioned, we doubled in size, and we needed something that could keep up with that growth. And so now on the next slide, so scale. So now that we have 48 employees, all 48 employees are using Financial Sense on a daily basis. And we have over 500 client entities in Financial Sense. We have over 1,500 active projects. We have over 10,000 active tasks. And all of these help us to track our utilization, our deadlines, our recurring projects. We use it for our client database. We use it for time tracking, which helps us with invoicing or pushes data to QBO for our invoicing. And we use it for our budget to actuals reporting. So we would not be able to grow and scale without it. So now I'd like to ask you guys a question. So are you set up to scale? What if an acquisition opportunity presented itself to you next week? Would you be able to double in size and be able to track all of those projects and tasks and clients? I recommend setting yourself up for success before that growth happens, to set yourself up for success. So yeah, and so I'm seeing some of the comments. So some people say they're working on it. Some are saying that they are set up to scale. Some are saying, no, we're not ready. So I think that's a great question to just keep in mind as you go about the rest of the conference. Are you set up to scale? What processes do you still need to document? Do you need to start with the leadership team to get alignment? Or maybe it's just a matter of getting everyone to follow what you set up, followed by all. So I do want to mention, so Financial Sense obviously is the conference is being brought to us by Financial Sense. I'm a huge advocate. I love Financial Sense. So if you want to talk to me more about my experience with it, I have lots of great things to say about it. But I thank you so much for your time. I'm including my name and email there. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions about how we're using Financial Sense. I know there's other sessions today that are talking more about workflow and how to set things up. But I could talk a long time about Financial Sense and how great it's been for our company. So now any questions? So I have access to the chat here, and I know there's a Q&A section. So it says, thank you. Are there any templates? Yes, so Financial Sense has a ton of great templates already set up for accounting companies or other companies, but you can also create templates from scratch. We have templates that we've created up for what does a month-end close process look like? What is filing a 1040 look like? Here's all the tasks. So yes, Financial Sense has a ton of great templates already, but you can create your own as well. You can create a demo. Just go to that website, www.financial-sense.com, and they can set up a demo for you. Where do you find a consultant to guide your meetings? So there's a lot of different coaching companies out there. We at Badger CPA use EOS, stands for Entrepreneurial Operating System, EOS. So you can Google that. Our third-party consultant is through EOS. So that's who we use, and I have many great things to say about EOS. A newsletter provider. So there's a lot of great ones. I would just start small, just pick a free one online that you can use. If you have a marketing company that you've used, they, I'm sure, could help you draft something. How would you use KPI with contractors? That's a great question. So we do have some contractors, and that's a sensitive discussion just because contractors, I'll leave that one up to you, actually. Just, you can talk with your contractor to see how they want to handle that. What are suggestions to make sure management aligns with the company? Well, I think it starts with the management, the leadership. It's not about getting the management to align to the company. It's about getting the company to align to the leadership. So I think that question is backwards. You have to get the company to align with the leaders, and it has to be through transparency, through open communication. You have to be firm in what you want the vision to be, but you have to show your passion and your flexibility to get the team on board. Yeah, so those are all the questions. But yeah, thank you again. We have 3 minutes left in the session, so if anyone has any questions, I'll hang out. But otherwise, thank you all so much for joining. I've enjoyed sharing a little bit of our story with you.